Good evening, everyone. I am Abhijit. Welcome to the project presentation on mental health well-being analysis at pandemic times. In this project, we did the analysis of emotional and behavioral of mental health of child and which factor is influencing on child at pandemic time. I would like to thank our project sponsor, Mr. Sharat Manikonda sir, director at InnoDataTix, and our project guide Aniket Annam. Thanks to 360DigiTMG and InnoDataTix for this opportunity. I would like to introduce my team: Archana Mishra, Abhijit Kahurke, Ritika Verma, Dipali Agrawal, Akshay Mutalik Desai, Mohammad Akib Hussain, Humer Pasha, Mohammad S, Mohammad Yasin, Shatrudhan Moria, Shahid Khaja, K. Pranitha, Vamshi Krishna, Srikanth Reddy, Mohammad Ibrahim Kazi, Thaneru Akhil, Shiv Kumar Paswan. I would like to introduce through tables of contents, project goal, technical stack, architecture of child well-being, data collection, data understanding, data dictionary, data pre-processing, data analysis, model building, model deployment, and conclusion. Let us look into the contents that are going to discuss in the presentation. That is a CRISML methodology. CRISML stands for Cross-Industry Standard Process for Machine Learning. The 6 phases of CRISML: business understanding, data preparation, model building, evaluation, deployment. Now let us see about the business understanding. It is the initial stage. Here we have to increase and enhance the customer experience to get this query answer. Data is non-numeric and categorical in nature. And now we will see the second one is the data engineering or data preparation. In this stage, we take the required features from the data provided by the client. We cannot use raw data. First, we perform data processing to transform the raw data into understandable and efficient format. Then we convert the different categorical data into the numeric form by using label encoding. We did univariate analysis of variables and calculate multicollinearity using VAB score. Further details we will see later. Next, third one is the model building. In this model building, we have to build the different models like decision tree, multinomial logistic regression, random forest classifier. In this model, we did calculation based on factors affecting emotional and behavioral difficulties. After the fourth one is the model building and evaluation. Here we check our model accuracy on training and test data itself. For different F1 score, we got different accuracy. F1 is the harmonic means of precision and recall. We found out that. Fifth one is the deployment. In deployment, we deploy our model using Microsoft Azure and web design by using Flash, HTML, and CSS. Last one is the monitoring and maintenance of the model. In this stage, we have to take care of database. If data is real time, then we have to update the database according to data. Sometimes user added so many questions and answers, then it will be required some space. Next, come to the objective of the project. Here we have to understand the business problem. In that, we have to find out the factors which is affecting the children during pandemic times. So we have to maximize, find more factors. Can use emotional and behavioral difficulties and minimize the biased information. In the constraint, questionnaire form, which is filled by parents as well as children, is also personal information and sensitive too. Next one is the technical stack. Let us look into the technical stack that are used in this project. We use Python language for EDA and model building. Python is a very popular programming language. It was created by Mr. Guido and released in 1991. Python can be used to handle big data and perform complex mathematics, as well as it will works on different platforms like Windows, Mac, and Linux. Pandas is a library in Python which is used for data manipulation. Spider is used as IDE for model building. Tableau is used for data visualization. Microsoft Azure is used for deploying the model. Flask framework is used for web framework. HTML, it is a markup language which is used by structuring and presenting content on the World Wide Web. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets language, and it is used for describing the look and formatting of a document written in a markup language. Now my teammates, she will take over architecture part from here. Thank you.
Hi Abhijit. Sorry guys, sorry for the delays. I'm Akib here. Want to continue about the architecture of the child well-being. The first thing, in the slide which you see is data collection. And over here in the data collection, we have collected the data from the parents and children from themselves regarding um, their emotional difficulties and behavior difficulties. And we have placed many questions to them stating like what they have, what they like to have as a breakfast, and then do they like to communicate with others or do they not? Do they rely on the parents or not for really small uh, requirements and all? So the first question goes, I mean, the first slide, it goes with the data questionnaires. After the collecting the data, we perform data pre-processing. In the data pre-processing, we have undergone like data reduction and then data integration, dimension reduction, in order to clear the data and present it well. After the data pre-processing, we have done the feature engineering. Well, in the feature engineering, it comes as univariate and bivariate analysis. It's actually to sort the data in a proper way to collect the exact features of the data. So after collecting the features of the data, it's then we then proceed to the data visualization processes in which we use matplotlib. And from there, let's go to the model building part where we have just collected all the codes and then the best model has been selected and so that the model is ready for the deployment. After the model building, we have gone to the deployment part where the Microsoft Azure has been used. With this, the model has been deployed successfully so that the user can just uh, download or just put in the input data so that we can get the behavioral and the mental analytics properly. So here we go with the architecture of child well-being. And I request my friends just to continue with another slides. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I am Archana Mishra. After the architecture, I am going to explain about data and data collection. As we know, data collection is an important part for any study and is a research component in all study fields, including physical and social science, humanities, and businesses. An art project data collection done by primary sources through the questionnaire form, which is filled by the children as well as their parents. We can't use data as it is, so first we convert it as a CSV file, then after that we load it in Python file for the further proceedings. Now we come to the data understanding. As we go through the data, we can see that The data is not in a structured format. It is in a semi-structured format. Our database contains total 987 rows and 60 columns, where most of the data are categorical in the nature, and data contains some non-value or NaN values also. There are two subscales for the target variables. First one is the emotional difficulty subscale, and the second one is the behavioral difficulty subscale. Now we go to the next slide. This slide contains the screenshot for our data set. Now in the next slide, we can see all the attributes in data dictionary slide. This is our data set, and this is the attribute which our data set contains. As we can see, data is not in a structured format. Basically, it is in a semi-structured format. In data dictionary, we can see the column name, data type, and subcategory of the data type, where each column is explained what type of data is that in particular column and subcategory of that columns. Here, most of the columns are in discrete nature and very few columns are in the continuous nature. Thank you. For the further proceedings, Ritika will join us. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Again, I'm going to explain the next slide is data preprocessing. Before we have to do something with the data, we have to transform this data from the raw data. We have to convert it into some other format. First, we use the raw data as a structured format. Then we go for the data pre-processing, and then after that EDA, and then visual gross process. Can we go for the next slide? Thank you. In order to make data more feasible, we also perform some discretization method. Discretization is also known as easy maintainability, the process of converting continuous data into discrete basket by grouping it. First, we give some input values. Then in the discretization process, we convert it as a large set of input value to the output in a smaller values. And then we get the output value. Can we go to the next slide? Yeah, we can perform discretization in our data set. Also done label encoding, a process in which we replace the categorical value with a numerical value for performing the further processes. Data processing is an important step which is used to enhance the performance. During data processing, after performing the data processing, we can enhance our performance to get a more perfect output. Can we go to the next slide? Thank you. This slide contains the screenshot before the label encoding, and the next picture is the after label encoding. Can we go to the next? Thank you. We applied mapping also some columns like breakfast eaten and all places today. We also calculated the sleeping time for the children's that what time they sleep yesterday and what time they wake up today. After that, we can calculate the sleeping time. We can change some attributes name also our convenience to perform the further proceedings with some columns which we had not needed in our processing. Some columns we removed also, like year, month, day. These columns we just removed from there. For the next proceeding, our team member will join us. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Dipali Agrawal. Here I am explaining score categorization. We need to categorize into 3 groups based on the score for both emotional and behavior. For emotional, if the calculated score is from 0 to 9, we need to consider as expected. And if the score is 10 and 11, then it is borderline difficulties. And finally, if the score is 12, and more than 12, it should be clinically significant difficulties. For behavior, if the calculated score is from 0 to 5, then we need to consider is expected difficulties. And if the score is 6, then it is borderline difficulties. And finally, if the score is 7 or more than 7, it is clinically significant difficulties. Next. Next slide, please. After analyzing the data, we found these 10 columns are related to emotional difficulties. We have given the values like 0 for never, 1 for sometimes, and 2 for always. According to the score, emotional column is created. Next slide, please. Here we calculated emotional difficulties subscale. Firstly, we convert never, sometimes, and always into 0, 1, and 2. Then we add all these numbers. After that, in the last column, we categorize into 3 groups. Like based on the score for emotional difficulties like expected, borderline, and clinically significant difficulties. After analyzing the data, we found these 9 columns are related, 6 columns are related to behavior difficulties. We have given the values like 0 for never, 1 for sometimes, and 2 for always. But one column, I am calm, the value are reversed. According to that score, behavior column is created. Here we calculated behavior difficulties subscale. Firstly, we convert never, sometimes, and always into 0, 1, and 2. Then we add all these numbers. After that, in the last column, we categorize into 3 groups based on the score for behavior difficulties like expected, borderline, and clinically significant difficulties. That's all from my side. Further, I ask Mayor to carry the things forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Dipali, and good evening, everyone. My name is Sayed Khaja, and next slide is about EDA, that is Exploratory Data Analysis. EDA is an important step in data science. EDA is the process of investigating the data set to discover patterns and form hypotheses based on our understanding of the data set. Coming to the next slide, that is overall rating analysis through histograms. Here, I have plotted some of histograms. We will go one by one. First, I have plotted the health rating. As we observe from the histogram, most of the children keep their health in good condition. That is, I got mean is equal to 8.5, followed by median is equal to 9, which means that they maintain their health in good way during the lockdown, but very few children suffer from the health problems. Next, I have plotted the family rating. As we observe from the histograms, most of the children spend a valuable time with their family during the lockdown. That is, here I got mean is equal to 9.5, followed by median is equal to 10. Next, I have plotted for appearance ratings. As we observe from the histogram, most of the children believe in oneself. Here, I got mean is equal to 8.3 and followed by median is equal to 9. Next, I have plotted for friends rating. As we observe from the histogram, most of the children have good bonding with their friends. Here, I got mean is equal to 8.7, followed by median is equal to 10. Next, I have plotted for life ratings. As we observe from the histogram, most of the children had good growth in their lives. Here, I got mean is equal to 8.9, followed by median is equal to 10. Conclusion of analysis is, as we observe that all plotted histograms are left skewed, which means that the children who were under the survey, their health is good condition. The health is in a good condition during the COVID period. The next slide will be continued by Homer Pasha. Thank you.
Thank you, Sayed Khaja, and good evening, everyone. My name is Humair Pasha.
And the next slide is about feature importance analysis. Slide number 32. Feature importance refers to techniques that calculate a score for all the input features for a given model. The score simply represents the importance of each feature. A higher score means that a specific feature will have a larger effect on the model that is being used to predict a certain variable. From the plotted bar plots, we observe that some of the features contains less amount of information. So further, we drop those columns of features for both behavioral and emotional analysis. Now coming to the slide number 33, that is data analysis of attributes with the help of disk plots. This plot, let's show a histogram with a line on it. This can shown in all kinds of variations. This plot represents the univariate distribution of data, that is distribution of a variable against the density distribution. As we see, all the plots have left skewed distribution, which means increment in results, that is the children is in a good condition. The next slide will be continued by Akhil. Thank you.
Thank you, Sayed. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tanir Akil. Coming to the model building. A machine learning model is built by learning and generalizing from training data, then applying that acquired knowledge to new data it has never seen before to make predictions and fulfill its purpose. In our project, we used many algorithms, but finally we selected multinomial logistic regression. Multinomial logistic regression is one of the important type of logistic regression. Multinomial logistic regression is when the dependent variable has more than two labels with no order. Outcome can have two or more possible types and so on. The multinomial logic will help calculate the probability of any observation being in a particular situation. It is used to predict categorical placement in or the probability of categorical membership on a dependent variable based on independent variables. Coming to the matrix, next slide. The given data is unbalanced one. So for a imbalanced data set, F1 score and as well as accuracy is most important metrics. Accuracy, the number of correct predictions to the total number of predictions, and F1 score is weighted average of precision and recall. Precision is the ratio of correctly predicted positive observations to the total predicted positive observations, and recall is ratio of correctly predicted positive observations to all observations in actual class. In our project, multinomial logistic regression have highest accuracy and right fit, about 94.01 and 90.01, and F1 score is 92.25. For behavioral analysis, and next slide. For emotional analysis, it is 82.29 and 85.20, and F1 score is 85.20. Further continued by Akshay. Thank you.
Sorry, it is Bilal for ROC. Good evening, everyone. Myself, Mohammad Yes. Now I am going to present about the ROC, Receiver Operator Characteristic Curve. A ROC curve is a graphical plot used to show the diagnostic ability of binary classifiers. It was first used in signal detection, but is now used in many areas and in machine learning too. There are two types of ROC curve. Single line curve is a graph showing the performances of classification model at all classification thresholds. This curve plots two parameters, true positive rate and the false positive rate. And the second one is multi-class ROC. Multi-class ROC function can handle two types of data set, uni and multivariate. Advantages: it can display a simple graphical representation of the diagnostic accuracy of a test, and disadvantages are confidence scores used to build ROC curves made difficult to assign. Thank you.
Hello everyone, myself Akshay Mutalik DSI. So I'll take all the slides ahead from the model finalization part to the deployment of our model on the Azure platform. So we have used Azure platform for our deployment, and the first and foremost prerequisite is we all must have an Azure free account and a GitHub repository, before moving ahead with the model deployment. So Abhijit, I will be sharing my screen in order to explain all the deployment section. So I will share my Azure platform as a service, and then I'll explain everything. Let me know once my screen is visible. So I assume my screen is visible. So the first thing, as I said, is we first need to have a GitHub repository where we upload all of our prerequisite files. The prerequisite files are the proc file and the app.py file, which is the Flask, which has the code for the Flask application. The model.pickle file, which contains serialized form of our main model, and the requirements.txt, which contains all the Python libraries which will be used when the application runs. Okay. So next, going to Azure platform. So this is how basically the Azure platform looks like. So we all must have free account on the Azure in order to go ahead with the deployment service. So once we create a free account on the Azure platform, this is how the homepage looks like. So once we get to this page, what we need to do is we first need to go on create a resource. So when we click on this particular option, we get a page called as create a resource, and at the bottom we have multiple options. So of these multiple options, the one that we want to deploy is a web application. So we have to click on create a web application, which is as shown here. So once we click on that particular option, we get create a web application page, and we need to fill all these details, like what is the preferred web application name and where do we want to publish the code. Is it a Docker container or is it a static web app? So all these details are self-explanatory. We need to fill all these details, and then we need to click on review and create. So once we click on this button, we exactly get an application service which will start. So this is how it looks like. So for our application, child wellbeing was the name of application service, and this is how the homepage looks like. So once we get to this page, what we have to do is we have to go to the deployment center in order to start our deployment. So once we come on the deployment center, and when we have the page loaded, this is where we have to sign in with the GitHub repository that we have earlier created. So we have to connect to our GitHub repository. We have to sign in using our username, and we have to mention our repository name here, which is the CMH Azure, which I have created. So once we fill all these details and we click on save, the deployment will successfully start. So once the deployment is successfully completed, we have to return back to the overview page. Once we return back to the overview page, we can see a URL is successfully created, and we have our application being loaded onto this particular website. So going to the application, so this is how basically our application looks like. So we have a welcome homepage, and we have two particular options here. One is to calculate the emotional aspect of the child. So if we click on here, so we get to this page by filling on all these details, and when we click on predict, we will get the emotional aspect of the child. The second one is the option to calculate the behavioral aspect of the child. So once we click on the behavioral aspect, we are being redirected to the page where we can calculate the behavioral difficulty prediction. So we have to fill in all these options, and then again click as predict. So this is how basically our application looks like. So I'll stop sharing my screen, and Abhijit will reshare his screen back for the next slides. Go to the next slide. I think this I have already covered. Yeah. So coming to the feature importance score. So as our problem statement says, we are here to, the objective is to determine what are the features that are important and which will be very influential in calculating the child mental health. So as the data we are seeing on the screen, this is the feature importance score, and which is a plot of variable against the coefficient values. So from the data, what we can say is time to play, can you walk to the park, and can you walk to a play area, and whether a child has eaten fruits or vegetables are the most influential parameters when it comes to calculating the child's mental health. Next slide. So this is the same graphical representation of the feature importance score table that we saw in the previous slide. So this is a bar plot, and we can see all the plots of the, and we can see the strength of each and individual parameter that is impacting the output variable. Next slide. Coming to the interpretation and the conclusion slide. So what we can infer from the data that we saw. The interpretation of behavioral aspects goes like this. The time to play feature has the most influence on the behavioral aspects of the child. So children who are having adequate time to play seem to display normal behavioral traits. And location of a child's home near to a play area or to a park also has a direct impact on the behavioral aspects. And children who can easily walk to a play area from their homes show normal behavior than the children who stay away from the play areas. So apart from this, eating habits, academic performance, and overall health parameters also influence the behavioral aspects of the child. So next, going with the interpretation of the emotional aspects. So children who are having more friends tend to display expected or normal emotional aspects. And also the frequency of outdoor playing activity has a fair degree of influence on the emotional aspects. Next slide, please. So these are the suggestions, few suggestions from our end to improve the mental well-being of the child. First one is to maintain a healthy diet. Second one is to make time for exercise, however difficult it is. Third one is to always remain socially connected. And the last one is the parents are advised to guide their children with their feelings. So with this, I think we are concluding our presentation. Thank you, everyone.